Okay, Jess, you were unfortunately eliminated from Survivor in a very dramatic fashion. The tribe decided to
Yes,
draw rocks.
yes.
And this happened the day before Thanksgiving. So I guess my first question is, did this ruin your holiday, or were you still able to have a good Thanksgiving?
No, I was still able to have a good Thanksgiving. My mother actually cooked early, so we ate Thanksgiving Wednesday night before Survivor. And then I had
Okay.
another one with my in-laws the next day. So I was able to be with both halves of my family, and we still had a good Thanksgiving despite the fact that we were all kind of depressed.
Right. I think most of America was depressed. It was just very emotional to watch. I
Well,
can't
thank
imagine what it was
you.
like. What was it like for you to watch it?
It was very hard. I was very upset. I mean, obviously reliving it, where at that moment there were so many emotions running through my head and so many thoughts that were going through my head, and then to watch myself experiencing it was really hard. My son was crying watching me go through it.
Mm,
My husband was there. I mean, my family was upset for me, and yeah, so it's been, we've all been kind of processing it, because I think you go on to Survivor and everyone kind of thinks, well, you'll get voted out eventually, or maybe you'll win. But if you get voted out, it's not that they expect it, but that's kind of the norm. You get
right.
voted out. But when you go to rocks, it's a much different mindset and thing to process.
And you really, really did not want to draw rocks, but everyone else seemed oddly okay with it. Why do you think everyone was so willing to let fate decide their game?
I think that it was one of those situations where I was probably more visibly vocal about my desire to not. Will did express that, we shouldn't go to rocks either. But I think that because I was just more, I wasn't going to put on this brave front like I think some people were doing. I think some people were thinking to themselves, if I pretend like I'm really solid and I'm not going to flip, that maybe that will force someone from the other side to flip, in hopes
Mm,
that, one of these three is looking at the other three going, oh, well, yeah, that someone will end up flipping because it's clear that no one over there is. And I think that because I was a little more visible about it, I think Zeke jumped on that train a little bit to try to convince me even more, not only because I was a little more vocal about not wanting to go to rocks and visibly, shaken by the whole thing. I think he also saw me as almost expendable, because if, considering there was really no love for me on the other side, I mean, obviously they just voted for me the last vote, that if he was able to get me to flip, then structuring a vote against me later would have been very easy, because now I've shown I'm not loyal to the people that I've been loyal with. And clearly Brett and Sunday don't want to play the game with me. So I think
mm.
in Zeke's mind it would have been great if I had flipped, because then getting rid of me would have been that much easier. Because I really was very loyal to Ken and David and Adam. So I wasn't going to be going against those three individuals in a vote. And so I think that's probably why it ended up being the way that it was.
And after the second tie, Jeff let everyone have an open discussion about whether, you could all agree to vote out Hannah or Zeke. Was there ever, first of all, how long did that discussion last? And was there ever a moment where people were kind of willing to go one way, or was there just no option at all?
There was no agreement. I mean, it really was, everyone had really dug in their heels so much, and
Mm-hmm.
really there was no wavering. I mean, Brett was being very headstrong about it. David was as well. Ken was going to do whatever David wanted to do. I mean, they're really, and Jay was telling me just to vote out Hannah. So it really did not appear as if that group, or that eight, group of eight would actually ever agree on anything. We could have sat there all night and we wouldn't have agreed.
Wow. Well, did
Yeah.
you at least get to take home the Black Rock as a souvenir?
I dropped it on the ground on my way out. I was a little, disappointed and upset about that particular rock. So when I walked out that night, it was on the ground.
In the episode before yours, you got a few votes, but Chris was the one that went home. Why could the Gen Xers not work together to vote out the millennials one after the other?
Well, I think that there was just a lot of bad blood left over from where we came from. The Paul vote kind of set things up in that fashion, and it didn't have to, because the plan had been with the, voting out Paul, that Sunday was really going to bring Brett and Chris back around and make sure that we were still solid and we would work together moving forward. And that didn't happen. And I think because that didn't happen, then ultimately I was the one that was blamed for the Paul vote, that made it difficult for Chris and Brett to want to work with me, and Sunday was just kind of going along with Brett and Chris. So I think in their minds there was still some bad blood, but also I was working very closely with David and Adam and Ken, and so we were a solid group. And whenever you have a solid group in Survivor, it makes it threatening to a bunch of other people, because those 4 people or those 3 people are always going to vote together. And that can be a scary prospect moving forward. So I think that might have been a combination with it as well.
And now you decided to leave your legacy advantage with Ken. Why not David, though? I think David, first of all, David saved you. Let's just be honest.
I know
in week
he did.
4, he saved you. So why would you not give him the legacy?
Well, because I had promised it to Ken. And the reason that I promised it to Ken was in order to get Ken back in my good graces and trust me again and want to play the game with me. I knew that move that David made, saving me with the idol, that wasn't just about me. That was a great move for David. David solidified having my vote and my loyalty moving forward 100% by saving me. And so he was going to keep me around as long as he could, especially if he could get me to the final 3 with him. He would be golden, because all he has to do is turn to me and say, she wasn't supposed to be here, I saved her, I win.
Right.
It's a really good position for him to be in as far as moving forward in his game. So I knew that David was going to keep me around and was going to help further my game. I needed to get Ken to do the same thing for me, so I would have more than just David on my side. And so I promised him the legacy, and that to show him my loyalty and trust. And I stuck true to that promise, because that's what I had told him, that I would give it to him if I left the game, and so that's why I did that.
And now that you're on the jury, sadly, what are you looking for in a winner? What kind of qualities would make you vote for somebody to win?
Well, I definitely feel like Survivor is a game where you need to have played a game that people can respect and that people can admire, that you have to have made moves, but they need to be moves that make sense and that actually show a clear path or vision as to getting to the end. I know it's been described a lot as chess, where it's a chess game and you have to make the moves in order to win the game. And I feel like whoever wins Survivor needs to have done just that and planned out those moves and made their game what it was, as opposed to being brought to that position for them.
And final question, Jess, would you ever want to go through this again? Would you come back for like a second chance or an all-star? You would? Okay, good.
Absolutely, yeah. It's as long as my husband was okay with it. I think it'd be really hard on him, but this was such an amazing experience, and regardless of the fact that I picked a black rock, I have no regret, and I truly had such an amazing time that I would do it again in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for chatting with us. We will see you at the reunion show.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great.